Today, I'm pulling my Sloane out to show the world. It's big, it's white, and it is very, very British. What's up guys, Kyle here again, and today we are checking out the Sloane Arcturus 50-watt single-channel amplifier based off your racist uncle's favorite amplifier, the 2204 or the JCM 800. Let's do it! Alright guys, hope you're doing great out there today. If this is your first time here at my channel, my name is Kyle, and welcome to Blue Adrenaline Studios. What I do here is I take all sorts of awesome high-gain related guitar equipment, I record it with a simple setup, and I give you the unprocessed audio on your end. So if you're into E-Standard thrash riffs, drop C hardcore riffs, and grown men who love RGB, you're in the right place. Consider hitting the like button and subscribing on the way out so you don't miss any more of my stuff. Thanks! Alright guys, so this day has been a long day coming. In fact, it's been actually much longer than I realized it was. A lot of you who have been hanging around the channel for quite a while know that I demoed a Sloane amp on the channel previously, and it turned out to be one of the best amps that I've ever played in my life, which caught me completely off guard because it was built by some random dickhead over in Akron, Ohio. I'm just kidding. I think he's in Cuyahoga Falls. And that man is Steven Sloane. He's actually a great guy. I'm the dickhead. But that first amplifier seriously made waves. Like, I saw a lot of people talking about it. A lot of people were scrambling to try and get one of the very few that were on the used market that he had built, because he builds them all by hand here in the US. Literally builds them start to finish himself. And for a while was kind of just building single amplifiers at a time. But after I put that video out, not tooting my own horn, I don't have a horn. But that video ended up being a lot more popular than he and I anticipated, and people really loved the sounds that I was getting out of the amplifier, so he ended up having to create his very first wait list, and he ended up building and selling, I believe, 2 separate batches of that amplifier after that video came out. And that amplifier was the Antares, which is his SLO based amp. It was just a stripped down single channel ass kicking machine. Naturally, as soon as I tried that amplifier, I'm like, okay, what else do you have? Because this thing was absolutely incredible. To which he replied, I do have another circuit actually. I have the Arcturus, which is a Marshall based circuit. And guess what, guys? That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing today. That's why I called you in. So again, the Arcturus is based off of like the Super Lead or the JMP JCM platform. I'm not exactly sure which model and which year he based this off of, but what I can tell you from the brief amount of time that I've gotten to spend with it so far, it is an excellent sounding modded Marshall amplifier. We're gonna dive into all that. We are gonna check the amplifier out with multiple guitars, multiple pickups, multiple tunings. Gonna throw a couple overdrives in front of it to make the boomers' heads explode. I'm probably on a racist uncle hit list somewhere in the United States. Hopefully I don't get demonetized for saying something like that. Probably will. But yeah, before we jump into all that, you guys should know this is a sponsored video. Steven at Sloane Amplification hand-delivered this amplifier to me in order to let me borrow it to make this video here with you guys on the channel, and I am being paid to do so. In the sake of full transparency, I wanted you guys to know that. Feel free to take everything that I have to say with a massive grain of salt. You're more than fair to do so. But just know, I'm gonna give you my honest thoughts and opinions, as I always do. Keep that in mind. So real quick, let's go over the brief features of this amplifier and let's dive back into some tones. This is the standard Arcturus model, which is a single channel amplifier. It is just the dirty channel and nothing else. This thing loves to party with no pants on. It doesn't need to clean up for church in the morning. We've got all your usual suspects as far as controls. We've got gain, treble, mid, bass, presence, but you will see we have an added depth control, which is a plus on any modded Marshall circuit, in my opinion. we've got our master volume, and then we also have a foot switchable solo volume. So if you want to kick that thing in, you're playing some dumbass music that requires leads, you can do that via a foot switch, and therefore the empty hall will hear your solo louder. If the walls could talk, they tell you to work on your vibrato. But on top of all these controls, we've also got a few switches up here, and they're all pretty much self-explanatory. You've got your fat and tight, your crunch and your lead, your saturation, and your response. Really, the only one I think I need to explain is the response. That kind of changes the shape pretty significantly. It darkens the amp up, it thickens it up, it scoops a lot of the mids out, and honestly, it's almost like going from a Marshall to a Mesa in voicing. It's very, very noticeable. But as far as the front panel, that's pretty much it. On the back panel, literally the only thing that we have going on is an effects loop, but it is bypassable. It's on a switch, and it also has an adjustable send level, so you'll really be able to fine tune whatever weak loser effects that you're putting into the effects loop to play your weak loser music. This is a 50-watt amplifier, and this amp, as it appears here in front of you, will cost you $1,799. Steven also makes a 100-watt version of the same amplifier that comes in at $2,099. But wait! There's more, because he actually started offering deluxe versions of his large amplifier models. Deluxe version gives you that clean channel. So the 50-watt deluxe model would be $2,099. The 100-watt deluxe model would be $2,399. I really struggled getting through that sentence. So yeah, that's it as far as the description and the features of this amplifier go. So let's jump back into some tones. For that intro tone, I was using my Adam Jones 1979 Les Paul Custom by Epiphone with the Duncan distortion in the bridge. We are going into my Mesa 1999 traditional cab with the stock vintage 30s, SM57 on that V30, no post-processing on anything you guys will hear, and we are boosting it with a Boss SD1, and it sounded like this. And now without the Boss SD1, so you guys don't have to change your adult diaper. Alright guys, so without the boost in front, it has that classic 2203, 2204 thing going, where when you push the gain, it starts to fatten up, the amp starts to thicken up. It also has that kind of signature Marshall low end. I always call Marshall low end thuddy, because there's some stuff going on in the low mids that makes it sound woodier, or thuddier as I like to put it, versus something like a 5150, which is kind of clankier. This is all meaningless to you if you don't know what any of those words mean in my head. So I'll try to explain. But the thing is, we don't even have the gain all that high on the amplifier right now. And we're still getting a good amount of gain, and that's because we have the saturation switch in the on position. What that does is I believe it adds some diodes and some compression into that preamp circuit, and it really, really bumps up the saturation overall. And as you can see, we're now much louder, we have less gain, and the amp sounds a little bit more open. And with that, we're gonna jump into our racist uncle tones. Get a really, really nice crunch tone. It was obviously also very responsive to the volume control. As I rolled the volume back, there was still a little bit of crunchiness to it, but it was essentially a clean tone overall. So If you're looking for dynamics out of the amplifier, you're definitely going to be able to get that. It's also very responsive to different pickups. All right, guys, so let's see how much gain this amp has on tap. Right now, I'm using my Heritage H150 here with the Seymour Duncan Antiquity pickup in it. So it's PAF pickup, very low output. So, pretty saturated, but also really fat. Let's get a usable high gain tone. And it's not a super high gain tone, honestly, but if you go ahead and hit it with an overdrive, then you have more gain than you could ever need. So it responds really well to the overdrive. But let's turn off the overdrive in the front here. And now we're gonna compare the amplifier with 4 different pickups at 4 different output levels so you guys can see how it responds. So 4 different pickups, different output levels, active and passive. Very noticeable differences between all 4 pickups in my personal opinion sitting here in the room, but I'd love to hear from you guys. Let me know what you heard as far as differences between the 4 different pickups. So with that said, let's go down into a lower tuning. All right, guys, so let's start checking out some of the other switches on this amp because I haven't really touched on them much. We've got the fat and tight switch. We've been in the tight setting this whole time. Like an obscene amount of low end. If you're playing in single coils, that is gonna be the low end setting that you're gonna want because it's gonna thicken things up significantly. But for a humbucker player like myself who likes a super tight tone, even the tight setting, not quite tight enough for me, and I'll get into that more in a little bit here because I think it's tied to the depth control and that circuit. But yeah, that is the fat and the tight switch. Crunch and lead. We were on lead that entire time. And I really should have visited the crunch when I was doing the lower gain tones, but I suck at my job. So obviously that just brings the saturation down overall. If we flip the saturation switch off, like I said, man, this is gonna be a very versatile amplifier. Yes, it's one channel. If you're able to redial in between songs or you want to use it for different stuff that you don't have to foot switch and tap dance, this is gonna be an amp that's gonna cover a lot of ground for you. So obviously we just touched on the saturation switch. Here is the response that I mentioned earlier in the video. So it really shaves a lot of the high end off and the low end. And to basically counteract that, you need to boost the treble and the presence like all the way. Which in turn kind of makes the amp sound a little bit scooped by comparison because your mids are now lower than those very high frequencies. So if we were to go ahead, flip this over to the fat setting, turn on an overdrive. Now we have a really fat, not quite scooped sound, but definitely thicker overall with not as much mid-bite. So like I said, playing around with the controls, you're gonna be able to find a lot of different like settings and tones, depending on what you're trying to get or what equipment you're using. Let's do a drop C hardcore riff. Now let's flip it back to the other response setting and let's dial in a tone using that. Alright guys, so as you can see between the two different responses, I dialed the amp in totally differently, basically to just accommodate what that response switch was doing to the overall voicing, and I got two very, very different sounding tones out of it. And both of them were awesome, just in totally different ways. A lot like my nipples. That does bring me to basically my main and really my only issue with this amplifier. Overall, the amp has a ton of low end. Like, it's got so much low end going on. And in the preamp, I like where the low end's at. I think it fills in the frequencies like you would expect a lot of Marshall amps to do. And it does it without getting like boxy or overly flubby or rubbery feeling. But the depth on this amp is just not quite to my taste. Like, I really would love to see Steven do something in the power amp that allows you to tighten up that depth control a little bit more, because as it stands now, it's a very loose low end that it adds to the power section. That's with an overdrive on. That low end is just really big and loose and kind of slow feeling, so I would love to see him kind of maybe even put it in as an option, because there are going to be a lot of players who aren't like me who are going to want a lot of big, loose, low end. I've seen pictures of your wives, I get it, man. But for real, some people love that type of low end response on an amplifier. Me, personally, I like the super tight, punchy, percussive tones, and this amp, I can get it there, but it needs a little help. I'm going to show you real quick. If I kick in my trusty 7-band EQ here and carve out some of the lower frequencies. And even there, like, that helped a lot, but still, there's just a lot of really, really deep low end on this amplifier. A lot of speaker excursion going on, which makes it hard for the speakers to respond quickly and give that super tight, punchy low end. I don't know enough about circuits to suggest how to fix that, or to change it, I should say, because this is not a problem. It's a personal taste thing, but I would like to see maybe one more switch over here that allows you to tighten up the low end being produced by the depth control, which of course acts in the power section of the amplifier. So finally, baritone. Guys, that's gonna do it for me today on the Sloane Arcturus amplifier. What did you guys think about this 50-watt single channel monster? Is this the amp you've been searching all your life for? Have you always wanted an amplifier built by a random dickhead in Ohio? Steven's your guy. Sorry, Steve, I don't know. Again, $17.99 for the amp, as you guys have seen it demoed today on the channel. I'll put links down below to Sloane's website, to their social media profiles. I'll make sure to throw up a link of my foot pics down there. Has nothing to do with the amplifier, but I really want you guys to see them. And yeah, again, let me know what you thought about this amp down below in the comments. I really am curious to see if you guys enjoyed it, if you think that it had room for improvement. Did you think it sounded as good as or better than the Antares? Did you not like it as much? Whatever it is, let me know down below. I'll be sure to meet you down there to chat about it, guys. As always, if you want to support my channel, you can consider using one of my affiliate links with Sweetwater, Guitar Center, and Zounds. All three of those cost you nothing extra, and they greatly help the channel and help me do what I do here. If you like the video, make sure to hit the like button. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. It's gonna be the best thing you ever do. Kyle here again. We'll see you guys next time. You know what this wall is missing? Another amp. There we go.